two of them rushed over to the house, and what they found, what they will find, scarred both men for the rest of their lives. You see, it started with red all over the foyer, the carpets, the walls, signs of a vigorous struggle. Sandy panicked and rushed upstairs as fast as he could, but what he would see, what he would meet, was the lifeless body of his loving wife. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not remember anything in this video, then remember this: the past always seeks its payment at the doors of tomorrow. Or at least remember that the Lord never forgets. Because this man, Eugene Teodor Gligor, is about to be arrested for a very terrible crime. One that happened some 20 years ago. You see, after a long trip, Eugene steps off the plane, taking in the fresh breeze of home. He was back in Washington, D.C. But before he could truly go home, airport security tactically sent him to a private room where they would waste his time for hours on end. What Eugene did not know was that he was this prime suspect of a very old crime. But you see, this story does not start with Eugene. It actually starts with a 911 call in 2001. This call.
911, what's emergency?
I'm at 4824 Drummond, Chevy Chase.
Mm-hmm.
I work for a company, and we didn't have a call from an employee. We just walked in the door, our husband and I, and there's blood in the foyer,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like something possibly happened.
Okay.
You see, it was a beautiful morning, one like any other working day in Chevy Chase, Maryland. Sandy had just kissed his wife Leslie on the cheek, opened the door, and left for work. Little did he know that kiss would become our last goodbye. You see, in this story, whether it's the perpetrator or the victim involved, there's a lesson to learn, so please pay attention. Hours later, Leslie's boss would notice that she had not yet come for work. This was so unlike her. In fact, she would usually give a notification if she ever felt sick or was maybe stuck in traffic. But today, she was late, and dare I say, very late. Her boss called her husband Sandy, and the two of them rushed over to the house. And what they found, what they will find, scarred both men for the rest of their lives. You see, it started with red all over the foyer, the carpets, the walls, signs of a vigorous struggle. Sandy panicked and rushed upstairs as fast as he could, but what he would see, what he would meet, was the lifeless body of his loving wife. News spread, and their daughter Lauren rushed over from college only to be met with the sight of her unalived mother. Incredible pain pierced through her chest as both daughter and father embraced each other, searching for the warmth of comfort in their loss. Of course, the police arrived. They immediately began the investigation, and what they found, ladies and gentlemen, would puzzle them for another 20 years. Not because there was no evidence, but because it aroused questions that went beyond common sense. You see, while Leslie's blood was all over the walls, not all of it was hers. In fact, more of this matched with a male's DNA, some of which was also found beneath her fingertips, suggesting that she had definitely struggled for her life. As one would expect, the police first suspect was her husband. But you see, that is not even the most amazing thing. It's the fact that they decided to put a lot of pressure on him, forcing him to confess to a crime he never committed. But Sandy did not budge. He was a man that had just lost his wife, and yet they were telling him to take fault for her death. It was a really messed up moment for this man. When investigators checked the foreign DNA under Leslie's fingers, they found that it did not match with Sandy's. And so they expanded their search, checking if the only evidence they had would match with neighbors, family members, or even the mailman. Unfortunately, there was no match. You see, this case will eventually run cold, slowly fading out of the minds of everybody as an unfortunate accident with no justice in sight, until more than 20 years later. Now, do you guys remember Eugene? Airport security had dumped him in a room, wasting his time. However, they had been very considerate and left him with 3 bottles of water on the table. After hours of waiting, Eugene finally took one of the bottles and drank from it. What he did not know was that this was what the investigators had been waiting for all along. You see, they took that discarded water bottle, extracted his DNA from it, and then they checked if it matched with the DNA stuck in between Leslie's fingers some 20 years ago. Behold, it did. Instantly, detectives got an arrest warrant and Eugene was whisked away from his home in Washington. Now, the question is, how did investigators know it was Eugene? Or how is he related to a crime that happened over 20 years ago? But he was. You see, in his younger years, Eugene had been a very troubled lad, and he had a very bad addiction to drinking and was a major subject for burglary. However, it was not all bad for him, because at the time he had dated Lauren. Yes, that same Lauren, Leslie's daughter. It is understood that Eugene had visited the home on more than one occasion. Months later, Eugene and Lauren broke up, and Eugene saw our home as the perfect place to attack. You see, he knew the layout. He knew when everybody had gone for work. He knew the door was unlocked. He knew the home. But what he did not know was that Leslie had not yet left. Eugene entered through the front door to begin his work. But when he saw Leslie, he panicked, and the two entered a rumble that eventually, unfortunately, ended her life. But why did it take so long for the police to find him? Why more than 20 long years? The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is in the details. You see, because Eugene and Lauren had broken up for months now, Eugene was not seen as a suspect at the time of her murder. In that case, how was he caught 20 years later? Ladies and gentlemen, here we give humble thanks to science and technology. In 20 years, it had come a very long way. Recent advances in forensic genetic DNA technology was the key. This budding technique involved comparing DNA samples to those accessible on public genetic databases, which law enforcement had access to. They gave a list of profiles that were in these systems that have a certain degree of relatedness with DNA profile. Now, Eugene's DNA was not in the system, but an old forgotten family member in Romania had volunteered that DNA in search for potential family members a while back. Who would imagine that this would lead to Eugene's capture? Like I said in the beginning of this video, the law never forgets. But what lesson might we learn from the perpetrator or the victim? You see, we have to think twice about the actions we take, or they might haunt us in the future, even if we've thrown that old life away. Remember that the past always seeks its payment at the doors of tomorrow. And from the victim, we learn that not every smile that walks through your door appreciates the goodness of the home you offer. Some have come to take. Trust no one but the precautions you put in place. I mean, just imagine if there was an alarm system or cameras in the neighborhood. Would Eugene have stepped into that home knowing he was watched? Or could Leslie have pressed a button and the neighbors instantly alerted when she was in danger? Families should be kept safe. Just in case, I have left some affiliate links to home security cameras in the description. Please check them out and keep your family safe. And lastly, breaking into your home is not the only way people can ruin your life. If you like this video, make sure to check this other one of a man begging to be eaten.